So the three things, well, the things we need to do before we finish next week. Number one, I have the solution to last week's lab. Number two, we're finished with labs, okay? I'm not setting a lab this week or next week. You can start working on your assignment this week and next week, and you can get help from the lab people. So you've got 2 weeks and you have 4 hours. That's actually enough time to finish your assignment. But there's loads of possibilities for what you can do for your assignment. But anyway, so number one thing we have to do is finish off this thing, which is what we started last week. The rotation, the little AI tank that moves around the outside of the screen. I have a solution for that, which I need to go through. You need to go through the assignment and explain what your options are for the assignment. I want to do the sprite animation thing, and that's it. We're finished then. That's still going to take us quite a bit of time. Anyway, let's start off with the assignment, will we? Okay. So I guess I'll maybe just explain the rules of the assignment first of all. Your assignment I want you to work on over the Christmas. You can start working on it this week in the lab. But you've got 2 options for the assignment. For people that want to do the Imagine Cup, that's option number 1. You can form a team, you can come up with your own idea in either of the 2 competitions. The software design competition, which is just coming up with an idea for an app or a piece of software and implementing it in C#, okay? It has to run on some version of Windows. It can be Windows 8, it can be Windows 7, WPF application, it can be a web application, can be a phone application. If you're doing any of those things and you want to spend some extra time and get it running on an iPhone or an iPad or an Android phone, you can use Mono Develop and Mono Game, and you get obviously multiple points, you know, and a lot of bonus marks in your assignment if you get any of that stuff working. The other option is to do the set assignment, which I'm giving as an option to everybody. And I have been racking my brains to come up with what I think is a really interesting and fun one. Let's see, should we do the Imagine Cup thing first to give people that option? Right, I'll show you what the Imagine Cup thing is and I'll show you what the set assignment is. And that's basically what we'll do today. So you don't really need to take any notes from today, okay? I'm just going to mostly talk about stuff and show you videos and stuff. This is the first thing. Now, I really want people to do this. In a way, I don't mind whether you choose to do this or whether you choose to do the set assignment, because I think the set assignment is very interesting as well. But the most important thing I want everybody to do is I want you to get that same sense of creativity and pleasure that programmers have when they're making things. Alright, I love programming, I really do. I'm sure you probably realised that at this time. There's lots of things that I love doing. So yesterday I spent my afternoon writing a sprite animation library, which I'm going to share with you guys before the end of the semester. And it's great fun. I think everyone should make a sprite animation library, because you'll learn so much about sprite sheets and stuff by making one. But like, there's something kind of magical that happens when you get together with 3 or 4 of your friends and you brainstorm an idea. Could be a game, could be an app, could be something that you think is going to be useful for other people, and you implement it, and you feel that you get that experience of the product kind of coming to life, you know, and something that comes into existence that wasn't there before. That's what all artists do and musicians do when they compose a piece of music. And it's the exact same thing that teams of programmers do when they decide to make a piece of software or do a startup or write a game or anything like that. And in your own lives, I'd love you to have that experience. And this is an opportunity to have that experience. You don't have to be a great programmer. You know, you can be a part of a team. But I think if you choose to do this particular thing for your assignment, you'll have so much fun and you'll have a lot of great learning outcomes that you will get that you won't be able to get if you just decide, you know, I'm going to do a bank account, or the sort of standard just doing something and submitting it for an assignment. I want you to get that sense of making something and it to be for a bigger purpose. Alright, so anyway, I've just put some slides up together. You know, this thing, the Imagine Cup, I've been involved in for years, and I think it's a really wonderful, wonderful experience for anyone that's ever done it. It's been kind of a life-changing experience, right? And so I just put some slides together, mostly with photographs of some of my memories of Imagine Cup competitions over the years. And so this is Imagine Cup 2007. And that year we had a team of 2 students. These guys here, Mohammed and Maroof. And these were very interesting students, they're both international students. They represented Team Ireland at the Imagine Cup finals in 2007. in the web design competition, and they came second in their competition. They won a $4,000 prize, in addition to all expenses paid to Korea to compete at the worldwide finals. And this is them with the Irish ambassador to Korea at the time, who was very supportive and came out and spent a lot of time with us there. You know, and then the last night of the Imagine Cup finals was a big free bar, and the top DJs from Seoul. You know, and this is all expenses paid. You know, Microsoft pay every expense. You don't have to put your hand in your pocket at all for this week. And then these are pictures from that was Imagine Cup 2007. This is Imagine Cup 2010. And this was the team that developed Tai Chi Panda. So Tai Chi Panda, I guess I probably told you about this before, but this was, the idea with this was that you could learn Tai Chi. How you learned Tai Chi was you put on a headset, right, an augmented reality headset, and your Tai Chi master appeared in front of you as Tai Chi Panda. And the team that developed this, they used speech technology, so you could interact with Tai Chi Panda by speaking to Tai Chi Panda, right? And Tai Chi Panda then did all the different Tai Chi moves. When you copy Tai Chi Panda, you say turn left, turn right, you know, go backwards, go forward and stuff. So that particular team came second in Ireland, and that's Mark Deegan there using Tai Chi Panda. And Frank Hahn, who did that project, who was the team captain on that project, is completing his PhD at the moment. And then this was the team that actually won that year, and this is with a piece of software called Imagine Note, which in all my years working in DIT, this is the project I'm most proud to have ever been involved in. And I would even go, you know, further than my own PhD work. This was something I was really, really proud to be involved in. And so the team that developed this is led by a student called Nicola Nevin, who occasionally comes in and gives the guest lectures and that now. They developed this software which was to help children to be more creative with music, and she was inspired by her own grandfather, who was a great guitar player but could no longer play the guitar because he had Parkinson's disease. So she wanted to make some software that he could still play music, right? So we used this motion capture technology called the sound beam, and then Nikki developed the technology, you know, to take the signal from this sound beam and translate it into beautiful colours and pictures and sounds, and it got projected up onto a big screen. And we discovered that in particular, children who were severe and profound autism really, really loved this technology that Nikki had developed. And so this won the Irish finals at the Imagine Cup in 2010, and these guys got to go to represent Ireland at the worldwide finals in Poland. And we did loads of trials, you know, user trials with this. We got some user trials here at a special needs school in Wicklow. And those two beautiful kids that used to, they were just fascinated by it. There was one particular guy who was absolutely fascinated by it. He was severely autistic, you know, and sometimes the severely autistic children, they have a difficulty understanding a very simple concept that we all take for granted called cause and effect. They don't understand that if you do something it has an effect, but with this technology they were able to move and see the effect of that instantly represented on the screen. So this was a big breakthrough for the children that interacted with this. And we also used it in the Central Remedial Clinic. And this is just some pictures of the children in the Central Remedial Clinic. These students would have severe kind of mobility problems. You know, they were wheelchair users. Some of them mightn't have had great control of their physical movements, but the technology was able to compensate for that, and they could still make use of it to be able to play music. And it projected up a big screen like this and drew beautiful pictures and things as they moved around in front of the sound beam. And so this team got to represent Ireland at the Worldwide Imagine Cup finals in Poland that year, and that's Nikki. We didn't win, but it was a very, very, I suppose, a life-changing experience for us all that were involved in that project. And these are just general pictures of the Imagine Cup finals in Poland that year. And all of these students have gone on to do great things. Jonathan, who worked on the project, he's now a game designer for Digit Games. And Nikki, the team captain, works for OpenJaw. You know, she does kind of mobile software for OpenJaw. And she does do a bit of guest lecturing from time to time here. And then this is the Culture Day, which is part of Imagine Cup. And it's Carolyn Lillington, the journalist from the Irish Times, who came out with us to more or less tell our story. And that's Michael Murray. You met Michael, I guess, at the Imagine Cup presentation. This is the Imagine Cup finals from last year. So we had a team in 2011, but our team didn't do very well. In fact, I think we had two teams. We had two teams last year in the finals as well. One of the teams in particular I really thought had a great shot at winning, but they came second. So it was kind of disappointing. And the reason why I think they didn't do as well as they should have won, you know, but they didn't win because I guess they kind of fluffed a few of their questions in the presentation, which happens, you know, when you're under pressure and you're up on the stage and that. So they developed this. This was to do with helping people, you know, there's this technology called an orthosis. And an orthosis is this plastic thing that gets made if you break a bone, for example, or you have spinal problems, spinal injuries. They make an orthosis from a plaster Paris cast, and it then is used to kind of support your body as your body is healing, whatever. And these guys developed technology that made the use of the Kinect. So it generated a 3D model using the Kinect camera, sent it to a 3D printer, so it would print the orthosis. That was the idea behind the project. And there's Sean O'Donoghue, who was one of the team members. And in fact, we had a second team that year as well, and they developed this e-learning solution, which was kind of location-based game. They won the best Windows Phone app at the Imagine Cup Finals in Ireland. So that's Paul Rellis, who at the time was the CEO of Microsoft Ireland. So you can see when you do this, you know, these guys didn't win, but they get to really rub shoulders with the top sort of technologists in the country, you know, and the CEOs of companies like Microsoft. And so that was zero carbonation. That was one of the games that was got down to round 3. And then this is, you know, the panel, the judging panel. So it's kind of like a Dragon's Den type thing. So you get so much experience by doing these competitions, not just the technology and the teamwork and all that, but also you're putting a business plan together. You're making a presentation. And this, in my opinion, is the most worthwhile thing you can do while you're in college. You know, we hadn't got opportunities like this when I was an undergraduate, and if we had, I think I would have been doing these things every year. I just think they're so much fun, and the learning outcomes and the sort of outcomes in every way, you know, whether you win or lose, there's so many positive outcomes from these type of events and being involved in them. And then this year's Imagine Cup Finals are going to be held in Russia. So we'll be sending one team from Ireland to Russia to compete at the Worldwide Finals. And I'll just show you the little promo video. If you think this is something which is out of reach of an Irish student, you may be surprised or interested to learn that I was a judge at the Worldwide Finals in New York in 2011, and it was won by a team from IT Sligo with their software, you know, and they competed against 63 teams or 64 teams. Every country, well, not every country, but certainly most countries in the world were represented at the Worldwide Finals. There was a team from IT Sligo won with their technology, which was all about driver safety. So anyway, you can do that. Now, I obviously, you know, I don't mind whether you win or lose. I really don't. It won't affect your grade on this subject, right? But I want to give you the option of doing this as your assignment. Now, I will say that if you want to do something like this, this is going to involve a hell of a lot more work than doing the set assignment, because you're going to have to do a lot of work over Christmas. The deadline for this is the 1st of February. So you're going to have to meet, you're going to have to form a team, probably going to use some version control software. You know, so there's a lot more work involved. Okay, but I do think it's completely and totally worth it. And again, I don't care whether you win or lose. Just entering the competition, putting a team together, making some piece of software and submitting it for this competition, in my opinion, puts you into a completely different category. It really does elevate you into a different category. And I'm not the only one that says this, right? So I meet companies all the time, and what they basically say is they're looking for people who are passionate about computing. And how that is demonstrated is people that do this in their spare time. People who are not just coming to college and passing exams and doing assignments. People who are actually, keeping it real. That's what it's all about, right? You can do the games competition as well. Alright, so there's two competitions you can enter. The software design competition is just an app or a piece of software or a website that does something. It has to run on some version of Windows. You have to use Visual Studio. Okay, they're the only rules. The other option is to do a game. And if you want to do a game, again, you can represent Ireland at the worldwide finals in the games competition. You can use XNA, the technology that we've been working on in this subject as well. Yeah?
What level would the game have to be at?
How do you mean?
Like how good or how visually how good would that look?
I'll go through the marking scheme, right? I'll go through the marking scheme. So your game is judged. This is what you've got to submit. You've got to submit a game prototype, which is playable by the judges, right? We pick 12, well, not me, but the judges will pick 12 teams to advance to the Irish finals. And then you have an opportunity to work more on your on the next iteration of it. And then one team is picked then to win the game. So I think you pick the top 2 or 3, How good does it have to be? Well, I mean, you're competing against every other college in the country. You're competing against teams of students from this college and from every other college.
How good are coaches at making games?
Yeah, so I showed you the games file ones from last year, didn't I? So we won games file twice.
The
helicopter things, yeah. There you go. I mean, it's not that hard. Of course,
Sorry.
I quite agree. I mean, but they all won prizes at games file last year. And we won the games file competition the previous year with the game Cross Frogger, which was another DIT team, and that made use of the Connect, right? It was basically a 2D Frogger code, and it used the Connect, right? We also won it for 2000 and Drum. I mean, actually what they're looking for, if you look at the judging for this, 40% of it is for fun, how fun your game is to play. So they're looking for, something that's entertaining, that's fun. Execution is the technology. So, how complicated it is, are you using some sort of, advanced technology, whatever. 20% for innovation. So this is like, is there a new gameplay mechanic, a new game mode? Is it using, some sort of novel, using an accelerometer maybe, or the Kinect or whatever. And then 10% for business viability. I would say that if people are interested in doing this, I forgot to say this in my 228 class, right? We actually have a fantastic Masters in Creative Digital Media here in DIT, and you know what? There is a whole pile of artists on that course who would absolutely love to have a team to work on, but they don't know any programmers. So it's the same situation that we have here. We've got loads of great programmers who need artists. So before the end of the semester, I'm going to arrange a little speed dating event. So, if you want to form a team, get your team together, 2 or 3 people, and, basically 5 minutes with an artist, and you can pitch your idea to them, they can pitch their portfolio to you, and then you can meet up afterwards and decide to form a team for this. So I'll do that, I promise I'll do that before the end of the semester. Probably not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday I'll have arranged that. And also you can form teams with students from Ballyfermot College as well. And it's the exact same situation. They have brilliant artists there. Very, very talented artists, level designers and stuff. And they're absolutely crying out for programmers. So, that's the presentation. These are the judges. The judges are Andrea Magnorski. You know Andrea? So Andrea was presenting on Friday's State of Play event, which by the way is all archived. You go to stateofplay.ie, you can watch the whole event, the whole 3-hour event. Of course Shane was there, bigging it up for DT211. Give him a big clap. And so was Darren. And who else was on it? Was there anybody else on it? Well, all I can say, guys. Oh, sorry, Michael was there, of course, with Convoy Trucking. All I can say is if you weren't at it, it is totally your loss. Because it was an amazing event. Absolutely amazing and an inspiring event, right? Anyway, these are the judges. So Andrea Magnorski from Backhat Games. Jonathan Lynch, Imagine Cup finalist in 2010, who's now working for Digit Games. These are, if you like, the 2 indies. So they're from independent games companies. This is for the games competition, which I'm the captain of, right? And then 2 from AAA. Brian Cameron, who was the lead physics dev on Assassin's Creed, will be one of the judges. And so will Brendan Fields. Brendan Fields, graduate from D2228. So he's now working for Demonware, and you can see him on the credits of the Call of Duty games. Alright? Call of Duty, what's the latest one? Black Ops 2. So his name is on the credits. You know, he works for Demonware, he does the networking code for Demonware. So, so there you go. That's that. Alright. How many people think they might want to do an Imagine Cup project? Cool. Alright. I'll show you the alternative, okay? The alternative is that you do the set assignment for this subject, right? And this is the set assignment, and this is what you can do as an alternative. So, I don't mind which of these you do, okay? I think for your own sake, you might want to think, you know, depending on what you want to achieve out of this course. If you really want to be, you want to increase your employment prospects, and you want to sort of bring yourself to the attention of the judges, and bring yourself to the attention of people in industry, and you create a portfolio piece that you can show to everyone, and you're proud of what you're doing in college, then you should consider doing a competition, okay? As an alternative, I've put up something together which I hope is going to be equally interesting. But it's, you're not going to be able to do it unless you can program, okay? And, again, like the Sprite thing that I mentioned that I spent my afternoon programming yesterday, I think this is something that absolutely every computing student should do at one stage in their 4 years of college. I think it's a classic computer science problem, and everyone should do it. Now, before I show you what this is all about, I'm going to have one little quick word about plagiarism. Alright? So it was clear to me from last year that a number of you copied your assignments from other students. Alright? And also that, I just want to say that in this environment, in this academic environment, me being a lecturer and you being students, this is the world that we live in, right? This is the world that you guys have chosen to be a part of. And in this world of the academic world, it is completely and totally the worst possible thing you could ever do. It is absolutely terrible, okay? If I find any evidence of plagiarism in your assignments this semester, there'll be no mercy shown, right? I have been on the net, and I have done a Google search for all the examples of this, which are written in X and A, and I know them all. I've downloaded them all, and I've studied all the code. If I find that anybody submits work that they get on the internet and does not acknowledge it, you'll be brought before a breach of academic regulations committee in DIT. You have the chance of being expelled from DIT, and most certainly you will never ever get a reference from anyone in this institute. So it's very, very serious. Equally, if you try and get your code off somebody else in the class who's got some bit of it working and you submit it as your own, the exact same thing will apply, and there'll be absolutely no mercy. I want you to do this yourself or don't do it at all. And I personally have much more respect for somebody who makes an honest attempt at it and does not succeed in completing it. That, in my opinion, makes you a better person than if you copy and paste it from somebody else, submit some code which you don't understand as your own. Do you understand? You gotta try and be a real person now and an adult, okay? And think of it, you know, about your own sense of pride. And are you happy to be the type of person that basically cheats? Okay? And knowing that I will know that. Think about that. So this is what I want to talk about. We've got about half an hour left, right? So I can afford to take a little bit of time and lead up to this assignment, right? I think this assignment is incredibly cool. But let's start off with a little short video. And I've got loads of videos here. First of all, okay, let me just say that I guess there's two schools of thought in terms of how the universe evolved and became as complex as it currently is, right? There is one school of thought which is that we evolved by evolution, by natural selection, alright, over billions of years from more primitive life forms, okay? And the vast majority of scientists, we say maybe 99.9% of scientists concur with that view of the universe. There is a smaller group of people who believe that we were created by a divine creator, and that the universe, don't laugh, I mean, we respect people's points of view, and I don't care what your point of view on this issue is, but this assignment should hopefully maybe give you something to think about in those, you know, different views of the universe, right? And I don't mind what your view of the universe is, I have my own personal views, right? And you may have your own personal views as well. But just to put this work in context, I'm going to show you a couple of short videos, right? So this is a video report from the BBC about a creationism museum, which is in America. I don't know if you've heard about this, right? But the people that run this museum, they put an awful lot of money and an awful lot of effort into creating a museum which tells the biblical story of creation, all right? That the universe is basically 4,000 years old. What's that? 6,000 years old. It's in America, right? And this is just a short video about their sort of view. I mean, they don't believe, for example, that we evolved from more primitive life forms. They believe that essentially God created all the life forms on Earth and all the different forms of life, and that there was a biblical flood, and basically the literal story of creation.
They also believe that God put dinosaur bones here to test our faith.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's have a look at their video, okay? But they have a point of view, and, we have to respect other views which are not the same as our own views. But I'll just show you this short video.
Deep within Middle America, a new species of museum has evolved. It isn't a theme park, but an attempt to disprove the theory of evolution, and show instead that God created the universe, and it's highly controversial.
If there's any members in line, they can come over here to the right.
Though most visitors appear to have made their minds up already.
It takes more faith to believe in evolution. A lot more. There's a lot less facts.
And this is what they'll see. A high-tech recreation of biblical events like the Great Flood. But what's really controversial is the claim it's all backed by science.
This is where the museum actually starts. This is a slot canyon, something that you would see along the side of the massive Grand Canyon.
According to the museum's co-founder, Mark Lloyd, even the Grand Canyon has a biblical explanation.
Water collected after Noah's flood. It breached its earthen dam, and the water rushed in very quickly and carved out the canyon in a matter of weeks.
Perhaps the most startling display shows children playing next to dinosaurs, something mainstream science says is impossible as they died out millions of years before humans.
And you believe that these dinosaurs were my friendly dinosaurs, that they actually played with children, or could have done?
There are all sorts of different dinosaurs, carnivores as well as omnivores. Many of them were quite peaceful, quite docile.
So they could have been children with dinosaur pets. The idea that dinosaurs roamed the earth with humans not that long ago is just one of the most eye-catching consequences of this biblical worldview. But one problem is that if it's true, it means that hundreds of years of paleontology, biology, and physics have got it very badly wrong indeed.
That's angered many, not just scientists, but moderate Christians too, who complain the museum is twisting science and misleading people.
I think they're lying to people, they're trying to manipulate kids because they don't know any better, and I just think it's really wrong what they're doing.
So, is it a fraud? To find out, we asked one of the country's leading scientists, biologist Professor Gene Kritsky, a modern-day Indiana Jones. What did he think?
Well, the only thing missing is yabba dabba doo. You don't take it too seriously. No, but you can't call this science. That's what's wrong. This is very cute, but so are this works.
But it certainly looks like science. So whether it's fact or fiction, creationists have made themselves much harder for the secular world to ignore. James Westhead, BBC News in Petersburg, Kentucky.
All right, I was actually looking for something. I was actually looking for something which was a bit more sort of favourable towards that view. I found this other little documentary which I
Creation Museum. We haven't really got it yet, so we're not sure what it's like, but I'm sure it's an experience that we'll all remember and cherish.
Evolution of a belief system, theoretically in creation, can prove it scientifically. It was scientific, but I would have to go with the creation story, the biblical story, if I could make a picture of what's going on out of it.
Let's go kind of hard to appreciate that one. So there's obviously another perspective on this, and that's that we evolved basically from simpler life forms, you know, and that complexity arose out of simple rules, okay? And this is, I suppose, the theory, the most simple rule of all is the theory of evolution by natural selection, which is another perspective. And I don't want to challenge anybody's particular beliefs here. I'm just throwing these out for you, and I hope that this assignment will give you an opportunity to think about these things, right? Actually, I won't show you the Dawkins video. I'll show you a little bit of it, right? But it's quite long.
So we have fine fossil documentation gradually changed all the way from Lucy, the upright walking chimp of 3 million years ago, to ourselves today. How do history deniers cope with this evidence? Some by literal denial. I encountered this in an interview I did for the Channel 4 television documentary The Genius of Charles Darwin in 2008. I was interviewing Wendy Wright, president of Concerned Women for America. Her opinion that the morning after pill is a paedophile's best friend, she fully lives up to expectations in her interview. Only a very small part of the interview was used for the television documentary. What follows is a much fuller transcript, but obviously for the purposes of this chapter, I have confined myself to those places where we discuss the fossil record of human ancestry.
What I go back to is the evolutionists are still lacking the science to back it up. But instead, what happens is science that doesn't bolster the case for evolution gets censored out, such as there is no evidence for evolution from going from one species to another species. If evolution had occurred, then surely whether it's going from birds to mammals or even beyond that, surely there'd be at least one evidence.
There's a massive amount of evidence. I'm sorry, but you people keep repeating that like a kind of mantra, because you just listen to each other. I mean, if only you would just open your eyes and look at the evidence.
Well, show it to me. Show me the bones. Show me the carcass. Show me the evidence for the in-between stages from one species to another.
Every time a fossil is found which is in between one species and another, you guys say, now we've got 2 gaps where previously there was only 1. I mean, almost every fossil you find is intermediate between something and something else.
If that were the case, the Smithsonian Natural History Museum would be filled with these examples, but it isn't.
It is. In the case of humans, since Darwin's time, there's now an enormous amount of evidence about intermediates in human fossils. And you've got various species of Australopithecus, for example, and then you've got Homo habilis. These are intermediates between Australopithecus, which was an older species, and Homo sapiens, which is a younger species. I mean, why don't you?
Alright, this goes on and on. I put a few of these videos up. You might wonder, what's the relationship of this to your assignment? Okay. Way back in 1970, a British mathematician called Conway developed this thing called the game of life. And this was the first example of what's called, what we now understand is called cellular automata. So in other words, it's a computer simulation of complex life forms emerging from simple rules. And that's what you're doing for your assignment. So, okay, hang on. So, originally, when Conway came up with this game in 1970, he did it on a 2-dimensional board with cells, you know, that could either be black or white, alive or dead, right? And then, as computers became more powerful, people made computer simulations of these, and people still, you know, this research that Conway developed originally, this is how, for example, traffic simulations and people simulations in games like Assassin's Creed are done. They're done using this idea of cellular automata. And basically, he came up with 4 rules. Okay, so you start out with a 2-dimensional grid. And from your 2-dimensional grid, you allow the grid to evolve based on the following 4 rules. Any cell with fewer than 2 live neighbours dies as if caused by underpopulation. That's rule number 1. You count the number of cells around your current cell. If it's less than 2, then that cell dies. Alright? Any cell with 2 or 3 live neighbours lives on to the next generation, so it survives. So you've got death and you've got survival. Any cell with more than 3 neighbours dies because of overcrowding. So you count the number of cells, if there's too many surrounding cells, it dies. And any dead cell with exactly 3 neighbours becomes a live cell. So you've got reproduction. You've all of these simple biologics based on biology, very loosely based on biology. And then let's take a look at what Conway himself said about the game of life, right? Because I have some videos from another documentary here. Let's find Conway's Game of Life.
The Big Bang was, in a sense, rather simple.
Yeah, the audio's kind of out of sync here, but you'll get to be able to follow it. It's just about 5 minutes long.
You could, in principle, if you had a half-enough computer, work out what would happen and end up with something rather like our universe.
But could it really be that simple? Mathematics might explain how planets form, but not everything. Surely the evolution of life was still mysterious, still special.
You know, people think that mathematics is complicated. Mathematics is the simple bit. It's the stuff we can understand. It's cats that are complicated. I mean, what is it in those little molecules and stuff that make one cat behave differently to another, or that make a cat? And how do you define a cat? I have no idea.
Yet in 1970, John Conway showed that even though life may be baffling in its complexity, the complexity arises from simple rules. The evidence came from a game whose results were so unpredictable that they called it life. Life had the most basic of ingredients, a board with a grid of squares filled with counters. The fate of each counter was governed by rules. Unlike our universe, there were just 3.
I had this idea that if you had simple rules, but not too simple, then probably complexity would just develop. We tinkered with the rules and played around and hoped something interesting would happen. And eventually we settled on the particular set of rules that we did. They were sort of slightly modelled on real life.
The 3 rules they arrived at were the equivalents of birth, death, and survival. What would happen to any particular square depended on its neighbours. An empty square with exactly 3 counters around it would give birth, so a new counter is added to the board. Any counter with too few neighbours would die of isolation and be removed from the board. A counter with too many neighbours would die of suffocation and also be removed. And any counter with just 2 or 3 neighbours would survive, staying exactly as it was. With only these most basic rules, unpredictable and complex patterns evolved. The board seemed to produce creatures from nowhere. Creatures that crawled. Creatures that fired out smaller creatures. Pumps that looked like a primitive heart. Creatures that spewed out an endless chain of offspring.
My little life game is surprising because from the simple rules, one wouldn't expect to find things that move in a sort of purposive manner and surprise us. That's, I suppose, why we call it life. It mimics life to a tiny extent. Like a little mini-universe.
Science dismantled the notion of life created with a purpose. In this rational universe, there's no need for a creator.
There's no design for life. No design whatsoever.
So that's Conway talking about it.
Is your final result just to be the screen where you can just have things moving independently like that?
No, what I want you to do is, if you implement the core game of life rules, a 2D grid, random starting, whether they're alive or dead initially, and then allow it to evolve, you get 50% of the marks for this assignment. So the core game of life gives you 50%. To get the remaining 50%, I want you to use your creativity to come up with any of the following. To interact with the simulation using a mouse, you know, to turn on and turn off cells and set the starting positions for all the cells. The ability to load and save boards, to adjust the speed of the simulation, the splash screen. There's 3D rules of life as well, if anyone wants to have an attempt at doing a 3D thing. There's different rules, sound effects, different colours, and I forgot to add here, getting it running on an iPad or an Android tablet. So you do all of that, and that's what you get the remaining 50%. To implement this game of life, for anyone that can code, it's only a couple of hours work. So you got to do all this extra stuff if you want to get the remaining 50%. And I want to show you what it looks like. This is Conway's game of life. This is some of the creatures that emerge from those simple rules, right? I'm going to skip forward into this box. Well, things get made in the middle and then they kind of take on a life of themselves. 4 simple rules, you know, is all you have to do. And you're able to make these amazing little simulations that evolve. So this is artificial life, that's what this is called. And this is the classic and the very first artificial life simulation. I'm going to skip forward this video. It's linked to from the assignment, right? Just right until the very end. Because I do want to show you one last thing before we finish. These are examples of some of the things that emerge from the simple rules. Look at that.
These are all just random, depending on where they place.
No, they're initially set up, right? And then you let the simulation evolve and it does this. This is, like I say, an example of complexity emerging from sets of simple rules.
So you just spread out a few on the board and then...
Yeah. What you'll discover is if you randomly start them out, these things will happen by themselves. But there are certain patterns that you can make initially, and then you let the simulation evolve and it does these things. So, for more information, and I put links, there's 2 great links. Number 1, there's a link... This link here, for example, if you go to this link, control click. Don't you just hate when computers don't work? Before we finish, hang on, there is one last thing I want to show you before we finish, okay? 23 years ago, a very famous computer scientist, it was a student in DIT at the time, did this in first year in Pascal. And that famous computer scientist was me. So I implemented this in Pascal as my first year assignment.
You coded before college, right?
What's that?
You coded
yeah, of course. All the great programmers start coding. The younger you start, the easier it gets. I never found programming difficult. I always found programming really easy. That's my fault because sometimes I find it hard to relate to people who find it hard. You know. Anyway, this is the game of life in Pascal, which I wrote 23 years ago as a first-year student in your course, predecessor, WNT.
I did last year too.
Good man. Cool. All right, you're done. I want to show you what it looks like. Okay, look, so I made various different, you can do random initialization, use your enter starting tree, or start with a few presets. I'll just show you the random initialization. And I wrote this, you know, this isn't a very good implementation because the board is way too small. It was written for DOS, so basically you have 80 characters across and 25 characters then, and it's too small to get some of those nice shapes to evolve. You need like hundreds by hundreds. So if I basically would say 500 cells initially, and then it makes 500 random cells, and then it allows it to evolve. But look how slow it is. That's as fast as it could run, you know.
Not very efficient.
Now it's refreshing the screen, like it's, you know, it's not the code, but eventually, you know, you do get some of these stable things, and this thing, which is called an oscillator, evolves. You can make some nice presets. So this one's kind of nice. This one evolves into a reasonably nice shape after a few generations.
What was your actual assignment for your assignment?
We were allowed to do whatever we wanted. So I've kind of been interested in AI and science fiction and artificial life and all that kind of stuff, so I found this really interesting. I knew about this, I don't know where I read it because there was no internet. I don't know where I found out about it.
Have you done anything in AI since?
Not really. I mean, not especially. My research is all about music creativity and musical creators and like that. But there you go, it eventually stabilizes and there's no more less of deaths. Alright, so that's your set assignment if you choose it. Really simple. It's a couple of hours work and then whatever you choose to add to it.